Please welcome Northeastern student and MLK fellow Gregory Hollis.
Good evening, everyone. I want to first start by extending a warm welcome to those of you who are here in person and joining us online. I am Gregory Hollis, a graduate student in the Physician Assistant Program at the Bouvet College of Health Sciences, graduating this summer. As a proud, thank you. As a proud graduate of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King's alma mater, the prestigious Morehouse College, I am grateful to serve as your Master of Ceremonies today. Growing up in the nation's capital of Washington, D.C., steps away from where the historic March on Washington occurred and Dr. King gave his I Have a Dream speech. To say that I have felt the remnants of Dr. King's legacy would be an understatement. I often tell people that while my degree from Morehouse was in biology, I look back and I feel like I got a dual degree in biology and Dr. King, and maybe a minor, and maybe an associate's, and a certificate. Whether my classmates and I were attending Crown Forum at the Martin Luther King Chapel, reading about Dr. King's viewpoints on justice, or traveling throughout the very city of Atlanta where Dr. King was born and raised, his beliefs sit within my spirit. To this point, I am very honored to be here to celebrate the vision and dream of Dr. King with you all today. We are thrilled to have several talented members of the Northeastern community and the John D. O'Brien School of Mathematics and Science taking part in today's program. Up first, we have Shalika Joseph. Shalika Joseph immigrated to the United States from Haiti in 2012 and is a senior at John D. O'Brien School of Mathematics and Science. She has a dying passion for piano as it has helped her throughout her life adversities. Growing up in a Haitian church encouraged Shalika's journey in piano and allowed her to find her style of music that she performs today. Shalika has future aspirations of becoming a dermatologist, and she will continue to compose music. Shalika wants to extend special thanks to Dr. John D. Bryant, Northeastern, and the African American Institute for this incredible opportunity. She will be setting today's tone with a ceremony as she performs Flow Like Water, inspired by Interstellar. Please help me give a warm welcome for Shalika Joseph. Please join me again for thanking Shalisha for that wonderful performance. I am now pleased to invite to the stage and introduce someone who likely needs no introduction. Northeastern's Associate Dean of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, Director of Multicultural Engineering Program, and member of faculty in the Department of Africana Studies, please welcome Dean Richard Harris. Go to the stage. That will be a start,
It's all
right?
good. It's all good.
All right. I'm also honored to welcome to the stage and introduce our very special guest, Dr. Imani K. Paris Jeffries, President and CEO of Embrace Boston, a trustee of UMass System, UMass Global, Mass Humanities, Boston Ballet, and Huntington Theater, and former Governor Baker's Black Advisory Commission.
That's all right. I guess I'll come up.
Good things take a long time.
Thank you. Good comeback.
So this is where we transition to what you might consider a fireside chat. And so in starting, I just want to give acknowledgement to my beloved brother who also has sat on the Commission for Black Men and Boys here as the inaugural 21-member commission in the city of Boston under Mayor Michelle Wu. And that's where I first had the opportunity to get to meet Amari. And so we've developed, I think, a real passion for this unique work that many of us inherited and stand on the shoulders of those who have come before us. One of the things that resonate with me is this opening statement that love is such a powerful force. And we see here that love, equity, and justice epitomize the embrace. And I remembered hearing that love is the most extreme expression of positive emotion. And so framing that into this question, we know that the city of Boston has worked hard at bringing its residents together from a long history of division, and with the mission to dismantle structural racism through the Embrace's work, the intersection of arts, culture, community, and research and policy, what do you see as the biggest challenge in 2024?
I love that we're starting with the easy question. Well, I'm really excited to be here, Mr. President, my dear friend, Mr. Speaker, our honoree, the renowned Charlotte Nelson sitting there amongst us, beloved community. Thank you for having me here to celebrate the King holiday. I love that we're starting the holiday earlier and earlier each and every year. And so every day that we can start it before the Monday is a day of progress for the work and really strengthening love. I think when we built the memorial and we started the journey, how we started was not how we ended. The meaning of building this monument for Dr. King and later Mrs. King transformed to a monument for all of us. I think when we were in the dark ages of the pandemic, many of us as students, as parents, as friends, the thing that we wanted to do the most with our loved ones, we missed weddings, we missed the loss of people we cared about, we missed important days. The most important thing that we wanted to do, many of us, was to embrace the people we cared about. So the embrace is a promissory ring, it's a commitment to continue to stretch ourselves in the ways that it means to be open-minded around other communities, new ideas, how we embrace people who disagree with us, as well as how we embrace people who agree with us. And so I think we have a lot of challenges in the city, but I'm heartened. I'm heartened by the young people in this room. We could clap for that. We could clap up for the young folks. And I'm heartened by the promise of the university. Institutions like Northeastern matter, and I think we are an important place. And so the Kings, both Martin and Coretta, as we know in this room, met as college students. Pre-pandemic, Boston was the fourth largest college town, if you will, in the city. And if you think about those other college towns, they map the population size. So New York is technically the largest college town. LA is number 2, Chicago's number 3, Boston is number 4, although sometimes we're the 15th largest city in the country. Former city councilor Tito Jackson said that almost every Bostonian or everyone who visits Boston for over a month gets a welcome note. And so many of us have gotten that welcome note. It's usually orange, it's in your windshield, and it costs you about $60. And so we really need to do a better job as a city of welcoming folks when they come to city, especially as the fourth largest college town. 375,000 people come to Massachusetts to learn. And so I think that's part of the promise of our city is to how do we welcome people who are from here and how do we welcome visitors in this renewable energy of students.
Great, great. So again, staying focused on love and the fact that Dr. King, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Ms. Coretta Scott King found themselves and each other as college students, right? And many of us, I think, can reflect on our own journey, having come through college and maybe having found that significant other, that other half that we didn't fully realize was out there. And so what comes to mind is the process of the dream. The scripture teaches us that in the last days, the old men and women would dream dreams, but the young men and women would see the visions. And so this is a vision. If Dr. King had lived to this day, and I think he still is with us spiritually in many ways, he is an elder. Yes. And so we've been taught and we've been told that we are the beneficiaries. We are the descendants. But in many ways, we now have to move, and I remembered Ayanna Presley sharing this with us from our Native American and indigenous peoples, that we have to move from being good descendants to becoming great ancestors. And so here we are. You are the young man, believe it or not, that has seen the vision. And so what I ask of you is, how do you see us being here today memorializing these heroes and sheroes in a way that will inspire current and future generation of leaders, as you just talked about these young people that are among us, and embodying the work of one of our current elders who has been with us for 45 years at Northeastern University, Ms. Charlotte Nelson. How do we go from being those descendants to becoming those great ancestors as we motivate and inspire these young people?
Well, when you said 45 years, I saw Mrs. Nelson give you the eye. Like, what are you telling? So we'll just say she's been here a little bit. I think the role of symbolism and gathering and rituals are important. I think especially when we think about love. And so it wouldn't be a university if we didn't have a pop quiz. Can I do a little pop quiz with everyone? Mm-hmm. Like impromptu pop quiz?
Sure.
So I'm going to ask 3 questions. I'm going to ask the questions first. And it's just like an informal survey. So we'll say that this is quantitative. We'll do some quantitative research in the moment. So 3 questions. Don't raise your hand until after the questions. And so if I asked you, who were the most memorialized people in the country? Choice 1, Abraham Lincoln. Choice 2, George Washington. Or choice 3, Martin Luther King Jr. Okay, choice 1, Abraham Lincoln. How are you? Choice 2, George Washington. And choice 3, Martin Luther King Jr. So how many of you believe that the most memorialized person in the country is Abraham Lincoln? Raise your hand. Raise your hand. High and proud. High and proud. Okay, we got a few people, like 5. Okay, 5 people. George Washington. Okay, no cheating. People haven't raised their hands. We only got one more choice. All right, last choice, Martin Luther King Jr. All right. Do you guys see anyone? Are you sitting next to someone who didn't raise their hand? I'm sure you are. Those are the people you didn't sit next to in class. You know who they are. Well, if you said Abraham Lincoln, you are correct. Can we clap it up for the Abe Lincolns? So the top 4 most memorialized people are Abraham Lincoln, George Washington, Christopher Columbus, and Martin Luther King Jr. in that order. But if I told you that at number 6 was Robert E. Lee, commander of the Confederate Army, if I told you number 12 was Stonewall Jackson, 13 was Jefferson Davis, and nowadays in 2024, we refer to them as domestic terrorists, but at number 44, Nathan Bedford Forrest, Confederate general and founder of the Ku Klux Klan, is the 44th most memorialized person in the country. There's over 700 Confederate monuments, over 700 roadways, 210 schools, 7 waterways, 7 bridges, 1 commemorative plaque, all named after Confederate leaders, formerly 10 military bases. And so when we have all of these monuments, all of these memorials built on hate, and the monuments located in states that have banned theories, banned books, banned and put limitations on women's reproduction rights, you can see the power of monuments in the way that they shape how a people in a society thinks about themselves. Monuments are analog cookies, in the same way that the digital cookies convinces you when you click that button to buy those shoes or that computer device. And so we're in the moment where we need to build more monuments built on love, more rituals built on love, more moments where we can share love, especially in a society where these monuments built on hate exist, years and years later. And so I think the importance of love is critical in this moment. These rituals of gathering, celebrating the King holiday is important. Celebrating and uplifting heroes who have done the work to build belonging is important. And so I'm proud to be here and proud to be a part of this university to celebrate the legacy of Dr. King, to celebrate the legacy of Mrs. Nelson.
Excellent. So to continue to embody the most extreme expression of positive emotion being love.
Yes, that's right.
So that takes us to this next question, and it really does transition well when we look at the part that the Embraces work has developed, working towards a more equitable Boston, if you will, and maybe in some ways leading that equitable effort nationally going forward, is looking at the intersectionality of the arts and culture along with research and policy through this imagined signature methodology, as you just expressed. How can higher education institutions in Boston, like Northeastern University, play a substantive role in this effort for the benefit of our great city?
You know, I mean, at the core, the university is the hub of learning. It is the hub of democracy in our society. And so, you know, I oftentimes worry when I see that hub under attack. It feels like democracy is under attack. There are a lot of rituals and symbols inside and embedded within a university that subconsciously tell students, faculty, and staff that they belong, that this is a place of learning and ideas. And I think as a society, we have to focus on creating, again, hopefully not sounding like a broken record, more symbols that create belonging, create learning, and illuminate love. You know, behind us in the backdrop is a quote that is a likeness of the Embrace. One of the remarkable part about the quote is that the quote is attributed to Mrs. King, but the font is based on a font by a creator, and it's called Martin font. And so the creator, who was a black creator who created the font, designed the font in the likeness of the signs, the I am a man signs of the Memphis sanitation workers strike. the moment and the season when Dr. King was assassinated. And so those symbols, that opportunity to create is embedded within the Embrace in the same way that's embedded in the community. I think Embrace is a research policy center, and so I think we are having conversations with faculty and leaders at this university to how we collaborate on some of the research that Embrace is doing around our city. And so I think that is a surefire way for us to collaborate together as we think about how we transform Boston and beyond.
Excellent, excellent. Well, we know the legacy of Northeastern University, 1898, focused on supporting and providing opportunities and access for the immigrant community. Many institutions wouldn't accept them, didn't see them as valued in terms of what the opportunity meant for higher education. So I think at the core of Northeastern University and what you just articulated speaks to who we are institutionally. And so again, scripture talks about what profiteth a man to gain the whole world and lose his soul. And so as a global institution, we understand the importance, I believe, of maintaining and sustaining that vision for those who are disenfranchised, those who are seen as less inviting to the spread of the table, if you will. So you've had an opportunity, before we get to the audience and asking questions, to live this work for the past year. And I know it wasn't always easy. I know that you were at times challenged in sustaining this vision, but you held firm. And so where do you see this vision of this work going forward in the future now that it's finally manifested in light of now how it's being received as this embrace?
You know, I appreciate that. 2026 is our country's 250th birthday. So we're right around the corner. Many of us, you know, I was 3 in 1976, the bicentennial. And so in 2026 is the semi-quincentennial. Can you guys say that with me? Semi-quincentennial?
Semi-quincentennial?
Some of y'all like acting like you don't know how to do it, but it's a hard word. We'll get it as we get closer. Semi-quincentennial.
Semi-quincentennial.
And so Boston is one of America's storytelling cities. We are literally the holy land of Americana. And so if you think about the other 3 storytelling cities of America, they are New York, Philadelphia, and Washington, D.C. But Boston has a special place in that order. People from all over the world and country come to Boston to get their American story reified through visiting sites, by hearing stories of tea being thrown in water, by going to the Old North Church and thinking and learning and living in our founding story of a country. We have an opportunity in 2026 to tell a different story about America. And Boston has an opportunity to tell a different story about itself. And we see some of the transformation happening. The HBO Max documentary about the Charles Stewart case, which seems like it was in the distant future. It's the 50th anniversary of Boston busing, and that time in our history. And so sometimes it's hard to see the progress until you reflect back on where we've come from. And so if Boston can tell a different story about itself, if Northeastern can help Boston tell a different story about itself, America can tell us a different story about itself. Boston gives America permission to tell a different story about itself. And so we are in important times as a city. As the 4th largest college town, we have a renewable resource of people, knowledge, and innovation to tell that different story about Boston so that America can tell a different story about itself in these critical, fragile times. So I'm excited about that. I'm optimistic. The Embrace is not alone. We are part of a wave of change. And I think Northeastern has been leading in that change for years and years and years. And so I'm optimistic about that. I think 2026 is a benchmark year for us.
Excellent. So this reminds me of the city on a hill. Yeah, we can. So that city on a hill still resonates, and Boston is at the top of that hill to help remind us. Right. One of the questions we'd like to do is open it up to the floor And so there are two mic handlers that will come to you if you raise your hand to indicate an expressed desire to ask any question.
And if you ask a question, you have to say semi-quincentennial first. So think about if you want to ask a question.
Semi-quincentennial.
Boom.
Dean Harris, Dr. Paris Jeffries, Nathan Sims, Northeastern alumni. So thank you all both for being here. Much appreciated for the discussion. I consider the symbolism of the statue and what it represents, and I also consider the significant critiques and backlash that was received as a result of the statue design. My question for you as a leader is two-part. First, how were you able to respond to the critiques and focus more on the message of the delivery behind the symbolism, as well as what form of, if any, of community input was involved in that process throughout the overall development and implementation of that?
Thank you. That's a great question. And so when the, Boston had been, when Tom Menino was mayor, and if you were around during that time, you knew that Mayor Menino was a powerful and really city-changing mayor. And so during his time, he wanted to build a memorial for Dr. King, and the will to do that in Boston was not there. And so over the past years, really starting in 2027, the idea resurfaced of building a memorial for Dr. King. And so there were 25 community meetings in Roxbury, Dorchester, throughout the city. We had a national and international call for proposals. 126 people submitted full proposals for a monument. There were 5 finalists, and then there were voting stations in Boston Public Libraries, City Hall, and a couple of post offices. And so people cast physical votes for those 5 finalists, and there were big, giant poster boards. People got to look at those votes. And based on a popular vote, the Embrace was the winner of the monument contest. So it was a community process. And then when deciding the 65 folks to be honored on the plaza alongside of the Kings, because during that time, we were talking about hidden figures. During that time, we were talking about, and before the pandemic, had never used essential worker before in my life. I've never put those two words together. But during the pandemic, we were talking about essential workers as being the most important people in our society. Hidden figures who did the work, that didn't get the credit, that literally held us together. And Mrs. King was both an essential worker and a hidden figure. And how dare we not include her in a monument to honor the King family legacy? Dr. King was assassinated in '68. I was born in '73. I personally have never seen Dr. King speak live, but I have seen Mrs. King speak live. I have seen Mrs. King in person. And so the King legacy, like many of us, was through Mrs. King. And so we needed to include her. And so we had a community board of 20 people led by Dr. Keith Motley as one of the chairs, and Lamerchie Frazier, to lead a committee to choose the 65 other folks being enshrined on the monument, Bostonians. And they had to be active between 1950 and 1975. So there were 150 submissions, but we could only choose 65. And when we met some of the folks, they said, "You are not including my mother without including my father," or "You are not including this person without this person." And so we went from 65 plaques to 69 names because we included every single person who made the movement possible. So 69 names, 45% of them are women, 2 people are of Jewish descent, 1 person is white, 3 indigenous people, 2 Asians, 4 Latinx folks. These are all activists between 1950 and 1975, all the names that we saw behind us. And so this idea of a movement in Boston extended beyond just the Kings it extended to a whole cadre of people. And you can't really see it from some of these images here, but if you see the embrace from above, it looks like two knots, Irish love knots. And so even within this fixture of the civil rights movement, we wanted to acknowledge Boston's rich and deep Irish history. And so the embrace is two Irish love knots in designs of arms reflected from a picture of Dr. and Mrs. King embracing. And so we attempted to make the most inclusive monument as possible. I know I'm going on and on. There is an app. That app, in order for us to translate this, is in Mandarin, Haitian Creole, Spanish, and accessible for folks who are hard of seeing or blind. And there is also on the gateway markers, markers for folks who are blind so they can touch the embrace before they go out and see it. And so this is the most accessible monument in the country. And so our attempt was to really challenge ourselves to be inclusive, to challenge ourselves to build a monument in America's oldest public park, in one of America's historic, original Black neighborhoods. And so that was the attempt of this. And I think sometimes, we didn't do as good a job in the beginning to really talk about the layers of the embrace. And so I appreciate that question.
Outstanding answer to a great question. Anyone else? I know I'm going to put the young people on the spot. So I know one of you has a question. Okay. Yes, you're the young person.
I am or not the young people, depending on who's talking. Dr. Regine Jean-Charles, Dean's Professor of Cultural and Social Justice, Chair of Africana Studies. Hi, Amari. Thank you for being here with us. It's always great to see you. So the other thing that I think is so important about what you're just saying in terms of the inclusivity is also that Hank is an abstract artist.
Yes.
And so unlike so many of the King monuments that we see that have this large imposing figure in his face, it's actually revolutionary, right, to have this take. And to me, it emblematizes this new generation, like you were saying, folks like your age and me, I'm younger than you, who never may have seen Dr. King but saw Coretti. So that's also, there's a new generation, right, of leaders in this country, of folks, the Black Lives Matter generation, who are collectively leading this change for social justice with love at the center, and that's not my question. My question is about this inclusivity, right, this ethic of inclusivity, which is so beautifully rendered by the couple being there. And I wonder, how is Embrace Boston moving that forward even more throughout the city in the work, especially with regards to being intersectional, the inclusion of women and girls and non-binary people as well? Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. And just, I'd say one more thing around the monuments. most American monuments are built in the neo-classical style, which is a combination of Greek revival and Roman revival. So if you've been to Copley Square, and you're standing by Trinity Church and you're standing by the library, people tend to think that the Boston Public Library is older than Trinity Church because of the architecture. So American monuments are built in neoclassical style. You can't touch them. The individuals are high perched up, high up. If you think about the Washington Monument in Public Garden, you got to look up at Washington. You cannot touch the statue. It's not accessible. And so that physical engagement with the monument is also a part of the American monument experience. The embrace is accessible, it's on the ground. I've even seen a kid lick it to see if it tastes like chocolate. It doesn't taste like chocolate according to the kids. But I think that the idea of radical inclusivity is a part of Embrace's ongoing work. Our premise, our underlining premise is that racism causes a poverty of empathy. And so, Heather McGhee posits that zero-sum thinking is a byproduct of racism. That if you get something, I lose something. That if you are made whole, somehow I'm diminished. And so our work in policy, for example, in reparations is really, partly about the redress of state-sanctioned racism, but it's also a part of training people around feeling good about making others whole, right, from wherever seat that you stand. And so Embrace's work, on the one hand, looks like one thing, but the other thing that we're also socializing is something else. So our policy work looks like reparations, and we are interested in the redress but we're more interested in, or also equally interested in, the socialization around making people whole and addressing the poverty of empathy that's a part of what's happening in our country and arguably in our world. Empathy, or the lack of empathy, is the opposite of love. And I think that's the great challenge of our work, is to increase more monuments of love, increase the type of empathy we have for each other, increase the understanding, and include people from wherever the door that's closest to them. We are not going to be able to cancel everyone to change. We're not going to cancel people into love. We have to create doors that is closest to where people are and welcome them through those doors. Like that is the challenge. That's the work.
So that speaks to justice, making people whole. And so I just need to bring this to a close. That was a great response to the question. We don't have any more time, so I'd like to thank the audience and those of you that participated. And I'd like to thank Dr. Jeffries for his leadership, but also his vision in many ways.
And thank you for your mentorship and your leadership. For all the students and individuals like me who've watched you and seen you move throughout this world and this work. It's been an honor to be alongside of you on that commission and on the stage and working through your legacy. And so thank you as well.
I'm humbled. Thank you. You're welcome. So let's welcome back our MC, Mr. Gregory Hollis. And I was told we were supposed to take a picture, so I'm not sure if that's being done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now you all see why I was in such a hurry to get back to my seat, right? So can we please give a warm thank you to Dr. Jeffries and Dr. Harris one more time. All right. Up next, I would like to take a moment to recognize this year's MLK Fellows. Can the MLK Fellows please stand? And could the staff of the African American Institute here at Northeastern University please stand? The Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Graduate Fellowship Program is administered by the John D. O'Brien African American Institute. What the fellows have in common is a set of life experiences, including community service, that is reflective of Dr. King's ideals and visions for our society. The program supports increasing the enrollment of underrepresented populations in Northeastern's graduate programs, and the work of the fellows is deeply connected to Dr. King's legacy. We would like to share with you the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Graduate Fellows highlight video featuring my colleague and MLK Fellow, Isaiah Simpson.
The biggest thing I think about when I think of MLK, his message and unity, is I know from plenty of classes that I've had to take growing up as a black kid, it was kind of tough back then, especially in like a male white dominated field such as engineering. But now the way I see it is I can walk into a room and not feel like I'm completely alone in there, you know? I can walk into a room and feel like there's people I can talk to, there's people I can relate to, there's people that will relate to me, and not a person in there is going to feel like I shouldn't belong there. Every day it feels like more and more I'm walking into spaces, I'm talking with people, I'm meeting new people, and I always feel like I belong. Originally, I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. When I was a kid, I remember the second I saw Iron Man for the first time, I was like, I didn't know what it was, didn't know what he was doing, but I was like, whatever he's doing, I need to take steps in my life so I can do whatever he's doing. I need to be doing that. I would say, aside from always pushing us to take on new creative outlets, one of the best things I probably got from my parents was actually more of the mindset. Within our house, we weren't allowed to say can't, as in, oh, I can't do this. They would immediately come and shut us down and be like, no, say it again. It's not you can't do it, you're having trouble. You just haven't found the way to do it. I first got into 3D printing back in middle school, and then from then on it just kind of became a hobby of mine. And I think one of my favorite questions is people ask me, oh, what can I 3D print? And I'll say, well, I don't know, what can you imagine? You can make anything you can imagine. If you can imagine it, you can 3D print it. Iron Man and like Full Metal Alchemist, Brotherhood, those spoke to me more than your standard superhero movie because through study and practice, they were able to achieve greatness. They were able to apply mathematical thinking, engineering thinking to build devices and machines that help them surpass their own limits. One of my friends who I made in undergrad, he doesn't have his right arm from about the elbow down. So he and I had been working together and I started designing a bionic arm for him. From the time I finished my undergrad now into the master's, I'm just gonna keep working on it, staying in touch with him so I'll be able to try different prototypes, test different materials out, find faster ways of making them, add more functionality to them. This is the kind of stuff that I wanna do going forward in my life. I've always wanted to be an astronaut. I feel like subconsciously I've just been making sure that I stay, physically fit, make sure I'm staying on the STEM field and the STEM track, because I feel like if I'm capable of going to space, even if it's just once, I feel like that's a thing I should do within my lifetime. I feel like that kind of ties into that oh, it's not a thing I can't do, I'm just having trouble, I'll find a way to get that done. Within the John D. O'Brien African American Institute, I've been fortunate enough to meet a lot of underclassmen, younger students than myself, who say, hey, Isaiah, the stuff you're doing, this is incredible. I want to learn how to do stuff like that. I'm now in a position where I can give them the mentorship that I could have benefited from. I'd say for me, every year MLK Day is more of a reflection on how far I've come, what kind of obstacles have I had to overcome to get to where I am now. And then also I take it as a chance to kind of look forward. Okay, how do I want to improve the field I'm in so that way kids who grew up like me can have it better than I did?
Somebody, oh, there it is. Okay, see? All right. Next up, I am pleased to welcome to the stage introducing Ms. Jayla Eaton, who is a Northeastern first-year journalism and media studies major, along with School of Law Dean James Hackney, who will be presenting a special recognition award to the incredible Mrs. Charlotte Nelson.
Good afternoon, everybody. So I'm here to read the bio of the Miss Wonderful, Miss Charlotte Nelson. The Nelsons. Charlotte M. Nelson, a fierce leader and advocate of civil rights, grounded in the core tenets of the NAACP, and her husband, Leon T. Nelson, founder of the Greater Roxbury Chamber of Commerce, have devoted their time and service to racial justice and equity building. Charlotte Matthews Nelson describes her decades of activism with an air of inevitability, a life of community service, organizing, activism, and standing up to injustice. Born in April of 1940 as a Black woman growing up in the segregated South of Dade County, Florida, there was a lot that was not fair for Black people. Matthews Nelson recalled watching her mother, Gertrude Matthews, work the polls at voting time to ensure Black people weren't threatened out of voting. She also remembers the exact moment she learned that her 5th grade textbook was used by 3rd graders in the district's white schools. These moments urged Matthews Nelson to do something to build change. Her volunteering with the NAACP and work at Northeastern University helped usher in equitable practices in the development of Boston's Roxbury neighborhood. Matthews Nelson is closing in on 45 years at Northeastern, where she also earned her bachelor's degree and now serves as the Employer Relations Coordinator. Matthews Nelson has served on several university-wide governing bodies, including as the former president of Northeastern's Black Faculty and Staff Association, the Commission on the Status of Women at Northeastern, and the Affirmative Action Council. She also reactivated the college chapter of the NAACP while at Northeastern. The City of Boston recently recognized her decades of service to the people of Boston and her commitment to racial justice and equity, according to the resolution. In addition, Matthews Nelson has served on the Greater Boston Civil Rights Coalition, the Governor's Hate Crime Commission, and the Attorney General's Advisory Committee on Youth and Urban Violence. She is currently a member of the Roxbury Strategic Master Plan Oversight Committee, a mayoral-appointed body that represents the needs of the Roxbury community in the development of 7 parcels of public land. In the early 1980s, Matthews Nelson brought the NAACP's Afro-Academic, Cultural, Technological, and Scientific Olympics, or ACSO, program to Boston and became the co-chair. ACSO is a national program designed to recruit and foster high academic and cultural achievement among African American high school students. Touching young people's lives in that way and being in their presence for a weekend during these annual competitions was just wonderful, Matthews Nelson said. It makes me smile now to think of some of the young people who have come through and still keep in touch, she added. In the 1990s, Matthews Nelson was elected the New England Area Conference President for 5 consecutive terms, overseeing NAACP branches throughout New England. At age 82, Matthews Nelson is currently serving as an advisor to this organization. Thank you for all you have done and everything you continue to do for us and the greater Boston area.
So now I'd like to invite Mrs. Nelson to the stage. So before you say a few words, I'm going to read the citation to you. Northeastern University bestowed this day, the 11th of January, 2024, to honor Charlotte Matthews Nelson for your meritorious service to Northeastern University and the Boston community at large, for your dedication of your life and career to activism, service, and fighting injustice, for your leadership at the Center for Law, Equity, and Race at Northeastern's School of Law, for your creation of equitable opportunities in Roxbury and other Boston neighborhoods, for your partnership with the NAACP and many social justice organizations in Massachusetts, and for your influence in forever transforming young people's lives. Signed, Ken Henderson, Chancellor and Senior Vice President for Learning. Congratulations.
Well, thank you so much. I'm not only speechless, but and also very emotional. Just listening to how I've been so fortunate, and perhaps by design, to do what was put in my hands to do. Coming from a family of 11 children, and in the deep segregated South, I just marveled at how I've been so blessed to just travel through this journey and meet so many wonderful people. And the majority of that time was here at this university. And I get almost teary-eyed when I think of what it looked like and where it was recognized here in this city and the world when I came in 1979, and to just connect to how beautiful and how wonderful it is to read about what we're doing both here on this campus for so many students now globally, and also the marriage between Northeastern and Greater Boston and how far that relationship has come. So thank you so much for being with me, being my extended family for 45 years. And I am humbled that this is happening today. And I hope that it's an example especially to the young people in the room. You can do this if you have a heart and a soul and a mind of service. Thank you.
That's what. Great. Thank you. Congratulations.
Before we close out today's program, I would like you all to help me and join me in welcoming Northeastern University's very own President Joseph Aoun.
That's fine. Thank you.
I may need a selfie.
Yeah, that's
Is that
it.
I may never get the president ever again. He's a busy man, guys, so.
Let's have a fun one. Great. Gary, thank you. Can I have a copy? How many?
Do I get the real number or the...
Depends. We have to talk. We have to talk. No, thank you very much. Shalika, you are terrific. And, bravo. Bravo. If I'm allowed a piece of advice, medicine and music go together. Don't give it up. You were terrific. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Let me start by recognizing one more time Mrs. Nelson. One of the first persons I met when I came to Northeastern, if you recall, and we had one person in common, a giant in Los Angeles, the head of your church, that I knew very well, that I worked with, and that was our bond. And you made an impact not only in Boston, but nationwide. So thank you very much. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you. Thank you. I also would like to recognize Dr. Richard O'Brien. You are doing a phenomenal job. Oh, Richard. You need to get a selfie with Dr. O'Brien every day, because he looks different every day, too. You were inspiring. I worry a little bit about you because you told me that despite everything, you want to be a university president. Are you sure you want to do it? You told me it's difficult, but at the same time, you want to do it. So I'm going to ask you to come to the podium. We're among friends, and tell me why you want to do it. Come here.
I love Northeastern. There's like an interview and a lecture simultaneously.
Absolutely, absolutely. So why?
I believe in the power of the university. It is one of the last bastions of democracy in our country, in our world. And so, when so many American institutions are under attack, including our postal service, the university must stand strong in both our ability to express new ideas, explore new meaning make, and to be inclusive. This is also one of the few places where folks of different ideas, thoughts, and orientations around life can come together to learn. And so there's nothing more powerful than a university.
Now, well said. And I wish you luck, and my job is not open. Thank you, Jeffrey. Thank you very much. Thank you. The exchange today, Dr. Harris, you are impacting so many students, so many people in our community. I want to thank you and recognize you too. Thank you very much. Thank you. The exchange today, and can be summarized in one word, and especially, the exchange that happened between Dr. Harris, Dr. Jean-Charles, and Dr. Jeffries, is radical inclusion. Radical inclusion. That's our marching motto now. Because frankly, what you have seen, what you have described when you came here today, now to speak with Dr. Harris, and now what you said, is that we don't have radical inclusion in our society and in our communities, in our universities. We are seeing that. We are seeing the tensions. We are seeing the fact that people do not feel the love that you mentioned, the unconditional love. And you mentioned that canceling is not going to bring people to you. And it's difficult to bring people to you. So essentially what you have done is giving us our marching orders. That's what we need to do moving forward, radical inclusion. Let's work on it all together, and thank you all for being here today. The floor is yours again.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Alrighty. All right. So we would like to thank everyone for coming out this afternoon. If you look in your seat, and even for viewers at home, there was a card, looks like this. On the back of that card, there's a QR code. And if you scan the QR code, it will take you to an app known as Hoverlay. Am I saying that correct? Yeah. Hoverlay. And on Hoverlay, you can literally see the 1965 Freedom Plaza, the embrace. You can see the honorees that are honored. It's a very, very user-friendly app. I just downloaded it about 25 minutes ago. So that's what I've been playing on over there. And so I encourage you all to please acknowledge it, download it. It's incredible. And to close out our ceremony today, I will also be introducing Ms. Joseph, who will be doing her final performance. She will be playing an original piece titled Dancing with Flowers on the Moon. Ms. Joseph, the floor is yours.